September 8, 1943. Italy signs the armistice. At one of the key points of Fiat's design process, a man, a brilliant designer of excellent airplanes, is having a moment of despair. His name is Giuseppe Gabrielli. Two aircraft, which would join the spectacular Fiat G55, which has been in production for months and is giving the Allied forces a run for their money. We're never ready. We've already talked about one, the Fiat G56, ready to overturn the tug-of-war with Allied fighters and bombers for air superiority. We haven't talked about the other. For a long time, it was either not discussed or, with the usual Italian tendency to belittle and deny the excellence born in this nation, it was said that it had remained on paper. But no. Absolutely not. It is an aircraft ready to overturn the entire naval war. It is the Fiat G57. The Fiat G57 was a fighter that many thought shouldn't exist, but also a torpedo bomber that few hoped for. A weapon so advanced that even the Germans didn't know it existed because it had been hidden until the prototype was flown. True to Gabrielli's prediction, while Europe burned, while the Allied forces landed on Italian soil, a team of Italian engineering professionals worked in secret on the first prototype of an ambitious project to transform the aircraft carrier Aquila into the most lethal war machine in the Mediterranean. A unit that would be equipped with the best carrier-based aircraft, the best and achieve operational readiness in the first quarter of 1944. But let's get back to the G57. It was a multi-role weapon that would have been supplied to the Aquila, which would have seen its entire air component based on this aircraft and not, as previously planned, divided into multiple types of aircraft, with advantages that you will understand were enormous in terms of logistics, interchangeability, crew training, and crew assistance in the air, and once aboard the aircraft carrier. Its creator was Giuseppe Gabrielli, one of my mentors. You have come to know him also through the gratitude I bear him. The engineer who had already revolutionized the Italian Air Force. But this time Gabrielli was about to donate another jewel, this time to the Italian Royal Navy, since it was decided that the Navy would finally have full access to the air component, at least of the aircraft carrier Aquila, resulting in faster battle decisions and the ability to support or attack enemy fleets from the air. The G57 was not just a fighter. It was not just a torpedo boat. It was a war machine completely redesigned starting from the solid, excellent structural base of the Fiat G55. Gabrielli, in agreement with the strategists of the Royal Air Force, had developed a project that would use a radial engine plan to create a production chain for an advanced fighter separate from that powered by the Fiat 1050 and DB 603 inline engines. A type of project that was naturally also proposed to the Royal Navy and naturally accepted. The Fiat Vortis A83, 1,475 horsepower of pure power, was a jewel of engine engineering with 14 cylinders and an excellent compression ratio of 7:1, a specific fuel consumption of just 283 grams per horsepower, per hour of operation, which would have made this fighter, this torpedo boat, unstoppable given the conformation of the Mediterranean basin. An engine that would also benefit from the power intensification system I introduced, developed by the DSS, which would have brought it to a full 1,550 horsepower. The fuselage was completely redesigned, the wings shortened for even greater maneuverability, allowing it to be as agile as a Viper that strikes and then flees at low altitude, at high speed. And very maneuverable. The torpedo variant was equipped with a new 680 kg HDS torpedo, lighter, faster, shorter, but actually more lethal than any other. Given that naval tank tests had confirmed its fluid dynamics. In fact, it was credited with a speed 15% faster than the fastest torpedo in service with the Regia Aeronautica. A warhead capable of inflicting mortal damage on the best Allied units on its own. A single torpedo was capable of inflicting fatal damage on the best vessels in service with the Allied forces. The aircraft was equipped with an aerodynamic quick-release system that had a minimal impact on the aircraft's shape, so that once the device was released, the G-57 torpedo bomber would transform into another G-57 fighter that would naturally defend itself. Imagine a speed of approximately 615 km per hour without power boost, which would have transformed into a maximum speed of 635 km per hour with power boost. Devastating weaponry. An aircraft that unleashes itself and ipso facto transforms into a fighter, rejoining its twins that had escorted it there. It is therefore a war machine designed to become the nightmare of the Allied fleets in the Mediterranean, given that a much less maneuverable, much slower aircraft, like the Savoia Marchetti 79, had been until 1943. The G-57 on the aircraft carrier Aquila would have posed such a serious threat that. But what happened? August 1943. The prototype is ready. The series production plans approved. The production line will develop in rings, following the already underway Fiat G55 line. An initial order of 600 aircraft has been placed. The first 100, ready by December, will be able to operate both on the aircraft carrier and from the ground in independent strike nuclei. In this ground-based solution, they will be able to launch attacks on Allied fleets from airfields that have already been identified. The Regia Aeronautica's attack aircraft would be added to the Reggiane 2002s, making the peninsula an increasingly tough nut to crack for anyone who might, let's say, risk their teeth to conquer it. In a few weeks, the first pre-production aircraft would fly. The intention was to streamline the existing testing. Once the prototype had completed its testing without serious problems, after the first flight, which had already been completed, the pre-production phase would begin immediately. Gabrielli had plans for a further, even more exceptional, even more lethal, advancement, but fate, as I told you, had other plans. The armistice. The German invasion. In one night, years of brilliant work were annihilated, humiliated, the pride of a nation thrown into the mud. No operational Fiat G57 aircraft ever flew because the Aquila was never completed, because the production lines were disrupted by the bombings. No actual pilot ever tested its power at sea. No Allied force ever faced this deadly threat. But now we know, the evidence remains of what had been planned, of what had already been achieved, and what hadn't just been left on paper. This weapon, along with others, some of which I've already brought to your attention, could have changed everything. Thank you, and I'll see you in my next post. Have a good day.